Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and thanks for stopping by again. It's been quite a while. I really have had quite a struggle in coming together in my mind how I want to approach this channel and everything that I'm doing because I'm not satisfied with things at the moment. And to do that requires all sorts of commitments. It requires money and effort and time. And I have to judge what is worthwhile and so forth and get it together. And I have to bring that to an end, and I should have that decided, in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully I'll be able to come out and report to you by the time that comes up. Okay, one thing I'm going to be doing from now on, by the way, is sending announcements to the membership and the newsletter membership at Retirement Wave and here, who have gone to the retirementwave.com website and signed up for it. They get a very simple paragraph note to the effect that there is a video up because the algorithm doesn't like us. I'm not doomed. I don't announce the end of Panama. The Panama is going dry. People are going to throw themselves off building balconies. That's my way to go. For a whole host of reasons, plus the annoying advertising, I'm going to get away from that in one way or another. So we'll be back with that to come. Social Security, that's done and over with. We took care of a big noise made about that, of course. Reforms are difficult to take, but I've been talking about it for some time. It is over and done with, and it's at the level that the National Assembly set and the President signed off on. In other words, it's law. And in past years, there would have been all sorts of demonstrations against it and so on. It's a hot potato type issue in every country that comes up. But in this case, and it was here, but in this case, the government did not budge. And that includes the National Assembly. We're not just talking about the President of the country. He doesn't have that power. He's got to have the Assembly working with him, and he's had that. So they got that taken care of, and it stayed the same. And that helps us and impress the people who set the ratings to determine the interest rates we have to pay for loans and what have you, that we still are trustworthy when it comes to this. And we've had an excellent relationship with the rating agencies for a long time. And they know we're working on this. Then the budget for this year is to be coming year is to be an austerity budget. Okay, this is a interesting little tidbit because it's novel. It's the first time I've seen it since I've arrived. Felipe Chapman is our Minister of the Economy and Finance. He's sort of like the Treasury Secretary in the U.S. and various and sundry similar people who are concerned with the money side of the administration of a government. Dr. Chapman is a smart man. He's very well respected internationally for being honest and straightforward. He was offered this position and he didn't want it at first because he said he took a look at the situation and said, oh my God, you're going to have a lot of people be disappointed. It's the only way you can do it. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be very tough, and I don't know if I want rioters in my backyard. And the president said, no, I'm with you. We'll support you. So he did it, and I was very pleased to hear that. But his test was this budget. He put it together, and he brought it down to the National Assembly and sat down with them and discussed it. Obviously, he did that with the president and with the cabinet. Everybody got a discussion chance in there. There are all sorts of commentaries coming from every which way, as is true of budgets everywhere. And when it was all said and done, the Assembly made it clear that it felt that there were certain, especially in education, certain activities that really needed emphasis and had to have some more money. And his response to it was exactly what I would expect him to do, but not expect it to happen in these days in this world that we live in. And his response was simply, that's fine, propose them to me and let me take a look at them and see what it means. But keep in mind that every dollar we spend extra in one area has to be taken from another, because the total final number of the budget is not going to change. That is solid. So you're shifting the money inside that budget. So keep in mind, someone loses out when somebody gains. If you've got things that you think are important enough for that to happen, let me know. And they did, and he took them into account. And the budget's precisely the same. And the budget passed unanimously. This is not because our National Assembly has decided to roll over and just do whatever the president says. No, no, no. But there is a definite, deep understanding within the government, and I think it's deepening all the time as we see what goes on around us, globally, that we really have to have our act together. That we've got to work together. This is the family style of politics that has impressed me when it is working in this country, and it's working right now. Everybody's unhappy with everybody else. Ask anybody if they think so-and-so is doing a good job. They complain. They sound like so many people in democracies elsewhere. They hate politicians, blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is, you can tell in many other ways that this has been almost a relief that we're through this business. And President Molino is a firm man. He could be called a conservative in many ways, but he's absolutely a patriot, number one. That's why our sovereignty is critical to him and to all of us, even those of us who are residents here. This man has managed to find a way to communicate with other parties and other independents and alike, and they all are working with each other. I don't know whether it's going to be the right thing or the wrong thing, and maybe history would judge this to be the worst administration, the worst assembly, or whatever. But I'm here to say that I've never seen so much hardcore sitting down, and they didn't have that in the beginning. They had to work out a relationship. And the men at the top here, who would normally just give their presentations and expect the upper class to support them, and that's that. Well, the upper class didn't win the election last time. The middle class won it, hands down. So as a result, now they have to come down and they have to talk. They have to answer questions. They have to be clear, all right? And that's underway. Now, we have this big gas that about, a pipeline being built, to be built along the canal from one ocean to the other. It's going to be a really, really, really huge impact on our ability to move things like ethane and methane and propane and so on, butane. The gases through this particular one, just a huge increase in it. How much of one is going to be determined now, because there's more to it than that. There are also ports involved. We think we need 2 different kinds of ports to support this. And there are other things. I just leave it at that. There's a variety. This is a major addition. In itself will cost probably a couple $2 billion. How much the entirety will cost, and this will be the whole area, what used to be the zone and other areas too. It's outside and so on. The zone no longer exists as a zone, all right? So its lines overlap here and there. The point is that the government is determined to keep things going in that particular part of the country and increase the logistics platform strength of this country to almost, an unheard of level before, and it's just really significant. So they may end up spending as much as $8 billion for the total. That's the $2 billion for that, or it might be expanded to a larger pipeline. The ports at the end that are talking about including in this package, they're going to cost probably a couple billion each, something of that sort. And there are other activities and other things, and so it could be anywhere from 2 to 8 billion. Now, follow me on this one, because this is obviously an immense project, if you want to call it that. It's a group of projects all put together into one format. Could be one contract. Get a lot of interest internationally? Yes, absolutely. Now, I'm going to give you a link if you want to see it. It will describe what it's intended to do, there are 45 companies showed up for the initial meeting to consider whether or not to bid on this. Probably a couple dozen of them will. But what they do, they go through a pre-qualification test initially to move anyone out who just doesn't have experience and just isn't up to par with the average, at least, if not above average in terms of this sort of activity. So there's always people who hope to, maybe they'll catch the eye of somebody else and be a small subcontractor or one of the, who knows. So this is moving on, and I was going to send you an article. It gives you a list of the companies and where they're from and the major candidates for this. And then once that's done, then they bring those who have been pre-qualified. They have significant experience to face this sort of thing logically. And they're going to work together with the government, and they're going to make this happen. They're going to come up with the approach working with the potential contractors. And in the process of this, they may break it up into 2 or 3, or they may do one monster, or whoever knows. But what I thought was interesting was that they're going to have sitting in front of them a group of contractors that could probably do anything along the canal of many different activities, not just a gas pipe. But because they are there and they are involved and they see the whole aspect of what is going to be attempted, the role of the ports, for example, and other things, everything else, they can begin to realize that it is a united whole. It is a logistics platform, not a single project. And it's already a platform. It's multiple pieces to it. This is expanding some and adding some pieces to it. In effect, you're introducing them to the entire affair, so that you end up having to divide it into 3 contracts. One deals with the gas pipeline, one deals with the ports, and one deals with something else. I mean, I don't know. But if you do, at least all the contractors likely to bid on those things will have seen and been part of the creation of the final, whatever's final. Now, I'm saying this not because they've announced exactly that's how it's going to be, but it's the only one that makes a lot of sense. They have said 2 to 8 billion. Well, there are the ways they can deal with that. They leave themselves flexibility. But I just like this style because you're going to get lots of well-informed potential contractors from the beginning who are involved in the initial discussions of what's to be done and so on. So maybe they don't fit into this group, this thing over here, but maybe they fit in over here, and so on. More power to them. So I'll give you a link to that. It's a very simple, straightforward article, just the basics. Then, the mine. The mine will be taken care of when it's time to be taken care of. As I've said before, we've got some contracts out for people to come in and make judgment calls about the nature of the situation, what would be required to blah, 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 blah. And we are hired our own firms to do a very careful presentation of exactly how good a job First Quantum did and what circumstances we're left in, and a lot of other stuff. It's going to be audited within its life, because the point is, when we sit down to talk to First Quantum, we are going to be proactive. All right? It says, we're not going to just sit there and say, oh, you are big, powerful people, and you know so much more than we do. Forget it. We're going to be well prepared. And amused me, frankly, is back during the inauguration, shortly thereafter, of the American president, the head of First Quantum came forward and asked, not long thereafter, President Trump asked him if he would intervene on behalf of his company to see to it that they got the mine back. And I'm sitting there saying, you, the head of a Canadian company, expect President Trump to toss in? Oh, yeah, right. Not happening at all. But it was sort of pathetic. Why? You know, you got to come in here with a different kind of attitude than that, man. If you're going to sit down and work well, you say, what do these poor, simple-minded little Panamanians know about the big investigations that lead to the final judgment? Because everything's an arbitration, and you have to accept the final arbitrated decision of that court. It's a standard in these huge contracts. So this is what we're headed to with the mine here. Looking poor, innocent little Panama going to be beaten up by the big meanies from Canada. Okay, sorry, Canadians. We love you. We really do. The mine. Well, I'll tell you. Just recently, just a matter of days ago, we got the final word that, and I don't know how for sure how to spell his name or how to pronounce their name, but Sacir or Sacir, whatever, is a Spanish corporation. That was the lead primary contractor on the largest contract awarded for the Panama Canal expansion. I think they were total, oh good Lord, what was it? I don't know, 3.4 billion or something of the sort. And they have come forward now. Recently, it was the final, how to put this, initially smaller amounts in different categories were dealt with, and in almost all cases we won. And the Spanish kept losing and losing and losing and losing. Now what's the value in that? Well, I suspect it's something to the, maybe it's somehow useful if you're in business, that you can put some huge sum of money, a couple billion anyhow, up there as an accounts payable. Well, it isn't, because it isn't accepted yet. It's a little more complicated than that. But it can't be denied that it is there, and it may indeed make a huge difference in the value of the company. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know, except the final decision on the whole thing, because we finally got down to the core contract, which is nearly 2.4 billion through 2,376 million or something like that. Okay? It got tossed out, the whole thing. Bump. And the Spanish company is going to have to pay our legal expenses. Poor little Panama, we're just so unsophisticated and innocent, aren't we? We just crush them. So, yes, and we are going to even be more careful and more focused on this one coming up. Okay, so I wanted to point that out, and then finally, what is that other? Last but not least, I think it's sort of interesting. Mercer comes out every year with these reports on how expensive it is, cost of living in a city, and the quality of life in the cities. For dozens and dozens, I don't know how many total, lots of cities all over the world, including small countries like Panama and Croatia and things like that. So the latest report came out, and of course I want to take a look at it. Let me tell you, how did they put it? They say, but the important thing is finding the sweet spot between the two levels. In other words, a city that combines low costs with a high quality of life. That's how they set it up. And so it's a chart, and you up in the upper left corner, it's a good place to be. But there were, well, let me say what they said. They said a city that combines low costs with a high quality of life. Ljubljana, I'm going to tell you which ones they chose. Ljubljana is in Slovenia. Montreal in Canada, Warsaw and Poland. Remember, all these are in like one group, all right? Zagreb in Croatia, Budapest in Hungary, Santiago in Chile, Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and Panama City. We're one of the 8 that have exactly that, and we're almost identical to Santiago. We're just like twins in terms of our background in this sense. But all 8 of them have that going for them. And that really rings bells in corporate minds when you're talking about a place to have an operations thing or something. This is good because you're trying to keep costs under control for your employees and for yourself, Plus, you want the quality of life to be decent so you can keep your employees and they don't leave in a huff and so forth. So, thank you, Mercer, for that. My attitude on all these lists is that there's one opinion. It's based, in this case, on, I assume, on the expenses of a business person or whatever, and not necessarily on you and me. I don't know. I don't care. The key point is that it's not the numbers that are involved. It's, as I often say with some things, it's the direction. As I said with Social Security people coming to down to Panama or not, from the U.S. or or Colombians coming across to move here to Panama and take out residency permits, all this sort of business. But it's beyond that. It's not the movement, it's where they've ended up. And this is where they are at this point in time. And it's a good thing. And it's never been a bad thing at Mercer as far as I remember, but this is ideal. This is excellent. This is exactly where we want to be if we're going to be competitive. It's not going to be perfect for everybody. It never is. Nothing is. Shouldn't be. No. But it will be excellent for a large number, and it always has been. This is why we haven't been losing businesses, regardless of what's gone on over the last 5 years. We haven't been losing businesses. They continue to move in. We're up to 187 now through one system under one law, and there are others that are separately from that. I mean, well over 200 that are international and global in scope. So, folks, we need more money. We need to get back to working a little bit harder on the education level, even beyond what we're already trying to do here. That's critical. But the health sector definitely needs it. A lot needs it. A lot needs it. And corruption we don't need. And we have an astonishing number of people in jail right now, convicted of corruption. More, and this is just this year. I mean, it's just been very rapid after all. President Molino has just not been president that long, and I make it sound like he's the one responsible. He's not. It's the whole society, and people willing to stand up and say, and claim corruption and point it out. It isn't perfect, but guys, this is exactly what democracies do when they mature. And they know they have got to get beyond the corruption phase. There'll always be somebody somewhere, no matter how pristine, clean, perfect an environment is, who's making out with more than they should. But the corruption and the capital C, that has got to stop, and it has to. It's being very rigorously challenged. And I'm very careful in what I say about things, because I've been disappointed, but I've also been impressed by what's been going on. I've been disappointed more in the past and impressed more in the last year. So I'm, for one, if you haven't guessed already, very happy that I'm here. Very. And I like my neighbors, and they get along reasonably well with me. So it is that I intend to be right here for the rest of my life. And I hope I'll be meeting some of you down here one of these days. And thank you very much for stopping by again.